Excellencies, distinguished delegates and experts, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored and pleased to welcome you to the second day of the UNIDO's Multilateral Industrial Policy Forum. I would like to extend a warm welcome to those here at UNIDO's headquarters and also to all speakers and panelists joining us online. My name is Nobuya Haraguchi.
Recording in progress.
I'm the chief of UNIDO's Industrial Policy Research Unit, and I'll be moderating this first segment of day 2 of the forum. Yesterday, we had outstanding interventions from policymakers, global experts, and international organizations. Some key messages emerging from the discussion are the following. Industrial policy can become a key tool to address big challenges confronting the world. For that, SDG can be the guiding principle for policy action. Regional coordination will be fundamental to make this work, moving from country level to regional policy levels, can create enough scale and can help solving some of these big challenges. For this to happen, we should improve the access of developing countries to finance and conditions they face. Shaping the direction of growth requires strong and committed states. This calls for renewed investments in building and strengthening government capabilities. As DG Mueller highlighted in his opening remarks, we need to collectively find ways to balance the legitimate national development interest and the pressing challenges enshrined our global development agenda. With this in mind, we'd like to encourage all of you in this second day of the workshop forum to share and discuss innovative solutions and ways to support industrialization for the achievement of SDGs. Increase cooperation and dialogue to achieve sustainable development, and provide support to address the widening gap between developing countries and industrialized countries. Today, we will move from the global picture and general discussion around industrial policy to the very concrete interventions that are being implemented to address specific challenges. We have 4 learning sessions. First, industrial policies for energy efficiency, where we will discuss specific policies to promote a better use of energy sources by manufacturing firms, presenting policy experiences coming from Austria, Egypt, and Ghana, together with experts from international organizations. Second, industrial policy for green hydrogen, where we will discuss policies and strategies to exploit full potential of green hydrogen in supporting industrial development, presenting policy experiences coming from Argentina and Morocco with global experts. Third, industrial policies to accelerate digital transformation in manufacturing firms, presenting policy experiences from Brazil, India, Jordan, and China, with experts from international organizations. Last but not least, gender and industrial policy, where we will discuss options to support gender balance through inclusive industrial policy, presenting policy experiences from Spain and South Africa together with global experts. We hope you'll find these sessions interesting. Let me now give the floor to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who will reflect on the main lessons learned from yesterday's session and help us thinking how we can move forward in ensuring that future industrial policies can tackle big challenges of our times. Professor Sachs, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This was a very exciting day yesterday, and today will be also very exciting with a lot of sharing of best practices on a number of specific challenges. The agenda that every country faces right now to achieve sustainable development is not an easy policy agenda. And so I want to reflect in just a few minutes on why this is challenging and different from normal policy making, and also what to do about it, because it's not a simple set of challenges that we face. First, the SDG agenda is obviously complex. 17 goals reflects the fact that we have many kinds of objectives: environmental objectives, social objectives, and economic development objectives. The whole idea of the Sustainable Development Framework is an integrated framework that combines economic, social, and environmental planning. Our governments need to learn how to do that, because this was not the normal process of development, where maybe the focus was on a rather narrow and specific, albeit important, challenge, but now we have an integrated framework. And so the first point I would make is our governments need to learn SDG-based approaches to planning. And we need planning ministries that are strengthened, that are trained in sustainable development, and especially trained in this integrated way of thinking. It's not just to satisfy some declaration of the UN, it's because we know that planning won't be effective unless it addresses all three dimensions of development: the economic, the social, and the environmental. So the first point is make sure that the planning is really integrated and SDG based. That requires itself a lot of upgrading of our toolkit and our knowledge base. We can see in IMF programs, for example, this is not yet the case at all. These are not frameworks that are designed to achieve the goals that we've set. So this is raising the toolkit everywhere. Second is this requires longer term planning than normal. That's hard, by the way, but you cannot make a transformation of any major sector of the economy, whether it's healthcare, which is SDG 3, or education, which is SDG 4, or energy, which is SDG 7 and SDG 13, and so forth, on a 5-year basis. So there has to be a 20-year or 25-year framework, as well as the normal 1-year or 4-year or 5-year framework. That's hard. We don't have good tools, and it's not possible, of course, to really predict 25 years from now, but it is possible to plan ahead, understanding that the plans will be revised constantly over time. I like very much what our General Eisenhower, who became president, famously said in the United States. He said, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." So the idea is the plans have to change over time, but the planning is essential to get an orientation to the longer term. So I really recommend, but it's very hard to do, that governments work on a 20-year framework and think ahead. Not just a vision document, but actually a public policy, government investment framework that goes well beyond a traditional nationally determined contribution on where the energy sector will be in 2028. That's not very interesting, actually. The question is where it will be in 2050 and how to get there. So this is the second point, longer term planning than normal. Third is bring in the engineers, certainly. This is technology transformation. And speaking as an economist, believe me, the economists don't know what we're talking about when it comes to technology. You need the technologists. So we really need an approach that combines public policy and engineering. Draw on your engineers, draw on the worldwide engineering knowledge. At UNIDO, we have created actually this year a Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition. This is for you to draw upon and actually to call upon. Its purpose is partly to advise the UN system, but it's to advise all the members of the UN system, so member states. What about such and such technology? Does it make sense? How do we get into green hydrogen? What should we do about battery technology? Challenge this new council of engineers, because they're world-class engineers that are given the assignment to respond to these questions. But I would say mainly in the planning ministries, use engineering and technology-based analytics, because we're in a period of rapid technological change, and it is key not to plan for the old technologies, but to plan for the new technologies. A fourth point that I stressed a lot yesterday, and I want to stress again, is do it with your neighbors. Because you're going to have a regional energy grid. No country can make a low-cost, zero-carbon system. You need to share electrons. Where it is sunny in your country, it will be cloudy somewhere else, and you'll export solar. And when it is windy someplace else and cloudy where you are, you will import wind-based power. And a large grid, whether it covers Europe or covers ASEAN or covers Latin America or covers Northeast Asia, is going to be lower cost and more effective. And then everyone will have, oh, security concerns. Can we really have electricity running across our borders? Well, the electricity will go in both directions, first of all. And second, be nice to your neighbors and insist that they be nice to you, and the world could get along much more effectively. It's not really naive. It's what we need to do. Otherwise, we're not going to make it. So I'm strongly advocating regional solutions. And each part of the world has a regional grouping. Make it effective. Task it to say, in addition to what we're doing at the national level, where should the regional grid be? How will we have different parts of this system integrated? How will we face hydrogen within our region? How will we integrate wind, solar, hydro within our region? And that's very important for ASEAN, as I've stressed. It's very important for Mongolia, China, Japan, Korea to be interconnected. It's very important for Africa to make an integrated power system, which it's aiming to do. It's very important for South America and so forth. So this is my fourth point. My fifth point is all of this will require lots of training and education. And one of the nice things about education now is it can be done online, so it can reach people in any time, in convenient times. There's going to be a lot more executive education, a lot more upgrading of skills, a lot more, okay, I'm going to do a 6-hour course on photovoltaics and get a certificate for that, or I'm going to do a 12-hour course on wind turbines and get a certificate for that. We need really creative online upgrading of skills. And that can be training technicians, electricians, PV installers, hydrogen system managers. It can be training planners. And I personally love the online because it just is so much more convenient, and it can be in depth, and you can link on deeper links to go into more detail. And it means a different kind of approach. It means not an expensive year on a university campus, though that's fun, but it means tuning in on the weekends or after work or 2 hours a day during work time, if your boss permits it and organizes. But we need mass training. And I think one of the things that the UN system can do is create a lot of online material that can be useful everywhere, because high quality online material is really enormously helpful in this. The sixth point, which is the hardest, is somebody needs to pay for all of this. So the financing issues are very serious, real, and to a certain extent unsolved. And there are multiple problems on financing. The big problem of financing is that the poorer you are, the more expensive are the loans. This is a very unfair world. We don't have a level playing field. We have a steep mountain to climb. It's very slippery. You start climbing, and then comes an international banking crisis. Whew. You are pushed down to the bottom of the slope once again. And we don't have solutions to this adequately. I was just looking at data just a couple of minutes ago for Brazil, which I'm going to be discussing later in the day. Brazil is paying 11% interest rates on its public debt, though its public debt as a share of GDP is no higher than any responsible country. It's just about the same as the G7, which pays about 2% interest on its debt. So Brazil has a big budget deficit, not because the primary deficit is large, but because the interest charges are huge. For no real reason, by the way. No deep reason. There's nothing fundamentally risky about Brazil in terms of its fiscal management, its budget performance, its debt levels, nothing. When you look at it, it looks just the same as anyone else, except the interest rates are so high because, quote, Brazil's dangerous, risky. But it's risky because the interest rates are so high. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not because of fundamentals. So the point that I want to make is the financing issue is real, and the one practical solution that I would suggest to all countries is go to your regional development bank. If you're in Central America or South America, it's the Inter-American Development Bank and the Latin American Development Fund, the CAF. So Latin America is favored by having two regional development banks. Asia has two now, the Asian Development Bank and the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. And go to them and say, we want much more financing from you than you're offering. And they will say, well, sorry, you have a country quota, and we can't lend you more. And then you say to them, all countries together, no, this bank needs to expand its portfolio tenfold. And we need more paid-in capital, and we need to take seriously the scale of the transformation needed. Because basically, the multilateral development finance system is a good one, but it operates dramatically subscale, roughly a tenth of the scale that it should. So the BID, the CAF, the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, all should be financing at a much larger scale. And I'll close there because what those banks offer countries is borrowing at nearly AAA ratings and 30 or 40-year maturities, and that's what you need to finance the transformation. Do not borrow 5 years on the Eurobond market at 9% interest or 12% interest and expect to survive it. Your development challenge is 25 years. So don't borrow short term. And if you can't get long-term borrowing in the bond markets, go to the development banks and say you must do more. And mention it to the G20, because this is the core issue that the G20 should be addressing when it meets in India. A much, much larger development finance system that offers low interest, long-term credits to enable the transformation to sustainable development. Have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sachs. On the second day, we'll touch some of the key points that Professor Sachs mentioned, that we like to learn lessons from countries which can provide good experiences or good for planning for countries, long-term industrial policy planning. And we have exciting program ahead of us. So let's start right away, the first session, energy efficiency. Thank you.